Hey guys, it's Jodi here, and I have Max Engling here, who is running for Secretary of State. So I'm excited to get to introduce you to him and to have a conversation with him. So Max, thanks so much for coming to Clay County.
Hey, I am very happy to be here. Thank you, Jodi. It's good to be on too. I'm excited for the cooking. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yay, because you like to cook, so
I do
that's
enjoy
good.
cooking.
That's good.
I'll preface this with a little bit of I don't have as much time as I would like to cook, and my wife is a better actual cook than I am, and so she does do that very well, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, so I feel like everybody, since we're created in God's image, everybody has a creative outlet. So do you feel like cooking is your creative outlet, or what do you feel like it is?
Okay, I might have to claim cooking as my creative outlet because there's a lot of siblings in my family, and they're all very creative, and they can do a lot of different things. They're musically gifted, they can sew and all that, and I basically got none of that. And so maybe I'll claim cooking as the way I get some of that expressed.
Okay, so tell me about you. Tell me about where you grew up and, you know, your first memory. No, we won't go back that far, but just tell me about your life.
Yeah, so I'll take it a few steps back, but before I get to that, I would say the biggest thing that defines me first is that I'm a Christian. Right. So I've been married for almost 15 years. We are going to the same church that my wife and I were married in. We love our church. We've got 4 kids, so we reside in the northeast corner of Hamilton County, so northeast of here if you go straight shot around Indianapolis. But growing up, I'm one of 8 kids, and so we moved a few times, and so what took us to Indiana, I moved over to Indiana when I was a teenager as a family, but we lived in rural mid-state Illinois, so between Peoria and Bloomington. I think they had to change the sign that showed what the population was when we left, because we left and all 10 of us were gone. But growing up, it was very agriculture based, so all my first jobs were ag, so baling hay, detasseling corn, but also showed cattle, was in 4-H, very much enjoyed that growing up, and instilled also, you got to work. This is part of the ethic of our family. But then when I graduated from high school, I went on a mission trip to South Africa, stayed there, and we built a lot, but also just worked with the seminary there and went out with a lot of the folks that were attending the seminary. And as soon as I returned, then we moved over to Indiana. My dad got a job at St. Vincent Hospital. And so we were excited to come into the free state of Indiana.
Did you feel that then?
I did feel that then. And part of it is because, I grew up, at least some of my schooling was homeschooling. And while all of it previously was a little bit more challenging just because you had to build more and there weren't as many resources, but also Indiana is much friendlier to parents that want to decide how they're going to raise and educate their children. So we moved to Cicero, Indiana. My mom, she has a degree in fine arts, and then my dad has a degree in biology, and he's been hospital administration, so both of them were very serious about education. They wanted you to experience what they experienced. Didn't mean we had to go to college, but they wanted all of us to be prepared to do that if we wanted to, and so I think that level of rigor was good growing up.
Who most influenced you in your life? And you can't say your parents because that should be a gimme.
Yeah. I would say, now this is maybe going to be a little bit of a cop-out because I'm just going one step back. But my grandfather, honestly, both grandfathers were very influential to me. On my mom's side, he worked for R.R. Donnelley in the printing business and did that for, I think, almost 40 years. Which there's some of that here on the west side of the state too at Lakeside Book Company. I went and toured Lakeside Book Company, and it was really cool and very special to see a lot of what they did. I have so many of those books on my shelf. But just that hard work, but also just a really, really smart guy. And so, and my parents wanted to also help foster that relationship. So if we have a question, say, how about you ask, Grandpa about that? And then my grandfather, they're both since passed away, but my grandfather on my dad's side, he was a very hard worker. He came up a different background, I'd say, than my other grandfather, but very strong believer, and also just wanted to build into the kids and the grandkids. And so we very much enjoyed getting out on the Mississippi River and going to fish with him, and always taking time to work with us. So I'd say those are a couple folks, but also there's been leaders that I've become very close to in different churches that we've attended, either growing up or now, that I think is really meaningful to me, where they're invested not just in what is your outcome today and tomorrow, but what is your eternal trajectory, which is a different way of looking at that. And so I've been thankful to those people in my life that have wanted to help you continue down the right path.
Do the kingdom work instead of doing the
That's right. Which you can do in any sphere. It is not, you don't have to be working for the church.
Amen.
So I teach Sunday school on rotation at our church for an adult Sunday school. And thankfully they've given me a little bit of time off from that for this. But the last Sunday, they asked if I would teach the young professionals group. So you're either in college or recently graduated, and the conversation was on living as a believer who is interacting in politics.
Right.
And one of the big points that I made was it's really no different than living as a believer interacting in any professional sphere. So if you are getting into it, your worldview is always everyone has a worldview.
Right.
And as someone who's looking through a worldview of a Christian, you do have a responsibility to live that no matter where you are.
That's right.
And whether that's in politics or whether that's in another job. So
that's right.
It was a good conversation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the Secretary of State's office, because you're running for Secretary of State. So tell me what the Secretary of State's office does, in case people watching don't know, because there's a lot to it, actually.
Certainly, and I appreciate the question. The premier issue that's covered by the Secretary of State is being the Chief Elections Officer in the state of Indiana, and so that's one of the divisions. Now it's a unique relationship because a lot of the elections division is actually appointed by other folks, but it still falls under the Chief Elections Officer position of the Secretary of State. So they work on both administering elections directly with clerks, but also as a division. And there's a few other entities like the Election Commission or the Recount Commission that are pieces of all of that together. So that's the biggest piece, probably the most forward-facing piece that people know about. But then another very important and large part of it is the Business Registration Division. So small businesses in the state of Indiana will all register, as I'm sure you know very well, with the Business Registration Division. And I think a key there, and we can talk priorities, but a key there is just Indiana has done a good job of being a business-friendly state, so we want to continue that. I will also say, though, when you initially file, it's relatively straightforward, but I think there's work to be done on later years of being a small business where have you already submitted information to another part of state government? Can those pieces talk to each other? Can we take some of the burden off of the business owner? How do you streamline it so that folks working in the registrations business division are thinking, my customer is the small business owner. How can I make sure that they think about hiring more people in Indiana and not getting through the bureaucracy? So work to be done there, but a big part of the division, and I will say I think that they've done a good job. There's just ways that we can make it better. And then another part of the division is the dealers part of the division, auto dealers and auto manufacturers. The goal there is to make sure as those interactions happen between the two entities and some of the licensing that happens there, that you create a fair playing field for both sides, so you can, as the arbiter of a lot of those discussions, that you understand what's happening, what authority the State House has given to that division, and make sure that you're a fair arbiter there. But then there's the securities division too. So the securities is anybody that deals in securities in Indiana. You're registered there, but it's also the education arm. And so any regulatory stuff that happens from the State House or goes through the Secretary of State's office, that's where the educators are to help folks in that field understand the regulatory effort there.
So if you get elected to Secretary of State, what excites you the most out of those four different divisions that I mean, I get it. You're going to be doing the whole job. You're going to have a level of excitement on all of them. But what one really kind of sticks out that's like, oh, yeah, I think I could really make a change here?
Yeah, so two-part answer. I would say one part is this office is a constitutionally elected statewide position. And so you have the divisions that you're directly responsible for overseeing, and then leaders that are administering those divisions. But I think the concept of the office is that you're sent there by the voters to link arms with your other statewide partners across the State House and to say, how do we work together to move our state in the best possible direction?
Right.
And so from that top level position, I think setting the vision for the office and having that ability to work directly with your partners to do good things, I think that part is very exciting for the opportunity to say, how do we build on what Indiana has and keep us moving forward? But division-wise, I think that the elections division is very intriguing, and there's some things that we can do kind of right away that would be important around election integrity, which is one of the biggest pieces of what I'm running on. There's some ways that you can work with the State House pretty directly to start moving in the right direction. One of those things is around ensuring that it's only eligible folks that are voting in our elections. And it seems almost a little silly that you have to say that because the word is eligible. And so clearly you want that. But we've seen a lot of ways where that can be evaded. But one of the ways that I'm pressing is if you are here as a legal citizen of the United States and you're residing in Indiana and you want to get a license, there's no problem with that. But you are not eligible to vote if you're not a citizen.
Right.
And so doing something like changing the color of your driver's license, the background color.
So it's the same color for everybody? I mean, after you're 21, it's the same color?
Once they change whether it's vertical or horizontal, then you get issued your license.
Really?
So if you change
that's an easy one.
a distinct color like purple or something, where if you attempted to vote or register with that, it would be very obvious.
Would that even take legislature to make that change, or could the commissioner or the BMV do that?
So it would take an act of the State House to make that change. And you are pretty limited. There's a lot of federal regulation around what you can do with licenses, what they look like. But that is one of the pieces that you could do differently. Work with the
All
State
right,
House.
legislators, that's an easy one.
That's right. And then another piece that you don't actually need the State House to move forward on is a transparency portal, still around elections. So it would be something called Eyes on Elections, where folks at the county level, just individuals anywhere in Indiana could say, I saw something that I think is a problem around elections. Maybe it was fraud, maybe it was a conflict of interest, whatever it was. And you can have a direct access to send that information up to the Secretary of State's office. I'm a big believer in more sunlight and making sure that you have transparency. And so giving folks an opportunity to push that up is really important.
So what do you feel like Indiana does right with elections?
Yeah, so there is a lot that Indiana does right. And I'll say I'm a proponent of the Save America Act. So we've seen a lot of talk around the Save America Act. Very important. What I'm also thankful for is that if today it was passed, the president signed it into law, a lot of that wouldn't affect Indiana very directly because we've already taken a lot of these steps at the state level. So I am thankful for that. I think they've made a lot of good progress there across really all of the state government level. I think a few things that I am particularly thankful for is when you have to show your ID to vote. I think that's pretty common sense. A little bit frustrating from the federal level is that if somebody comes in to get a license, they are asked every time, would you also like to register to vote?
Yes.
So it's a good thing to register folks to vote. What I don't appreciate is that they are mandated to ask that question even if their documentation for their license is from another country.
Really?
And so then you know for a fact they're not eligible. The bigger challenge is if they decline that opportunity to register and instead later do it on their own and attest that they are a citizen while that's not legal. To say you are a citizen when you're not, it's much harder to find that and catch that person in the process once you're in once you already have your license. That's why I think it's important to change the color too, so that you just proactively stop a lot of that.
Do you have any idea how many elected officers offices there are throughout Indiana, from like the lowly Township Advisory Board to, because I don't know the answer, and I did an interview with Bo Bai last week, and I asked him, he didn't know the answer, so
I'm going to give the same answer. I legitimately don't know the total number.
I just think there's a lot whenever you go to thinking about it. So anyway,
and an important part of that conversation is, oftentimes when you think of somebody who's in elected office, you think of the folks that are either running statewide or your federal officials and all of that. But most often, the government that affects your life most directly is not those
You're
folks.
right. You're
it's
right.
the folks you're dealing with that you know personally
You're
at
right.
the county level or the municipal level.
We got to talk about some negatives because
Yeah.
I feel like everybody needs to have the chance to address, what people are saying about them.
And I concur with that.
Let me just ask this question. All right. So it's been reported with the money, that you had to give back, that you are your own treasurer for your campaign. So what led to that decision?
Yeah, so you can, anyone could be your treasurer.
Right.
You can be yourself, you can be a candidate, it can be someone else. And it was more of a, do we have a person we can have do this, yes or no? And at the moment, I didn't have somebody that was signed off to say they would do this, so I became my own treasurer. An important caveat to that is that we have hired in my opinion, the best compliance team in Indiana to do all of the work of what is acceptable or not.
Okay.
And so then they confirm everything and say, we want to make sure that we are doing everything, not only by the book, but we don't even want to have the appearance of impropriety. And so we're very clear about that. And so most of that information is routed through or confirmed by our compliance team, which I'm thankful for.
So have you got somebody on your compliance team to be listed as your treasurer instead of you?
So we will more than likely end up there. Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I'm like, whenever I would talk to somebody who was running, I was like, get somebody else to be your treasurer. And so whenever I heard that, I was like, oh, Max, who didn't tell you not to be your own treasurer? Whenever you ran for Congress, because you ran for Congress in the 5th, who was your treasurer then?
It was a firm. They were technically a firm out of Georgia, but it was from the same perspective of we just need to have this done very well. Okay. And we will pay to have that done very well.
So your name wasn't on the line.
I was not the treasurer on that one.
Okay. All right. Whenever I heard that, I was like, oh, dang. Whenever I heard this quote, and this is a quote from Todd Rokita, and I'm going to read it. For all the new 18-year-old women voters who think Bobai is so cute, I think Max can help with that. What did your wife think about that?
My thing has always been, you want to put the person up who has, number one, in this race, the most experience in this particular thing, which we can talk about that, but is a fact. And then the second thing is a person that you trust with your shared values to go execute on that mission well. And so we've been pressing on the policy side and the experience side. So folks have the comfort of knowing, yes, we like Max as a person, but importantly, we trust him in the role of the office and the experience in the office and the direction that he wants to take the office. So with that statement, my wife is wonderful. And anytime things like that come through, I'll even forward her over something and say, hey, this happened or this came out, and not this particular thing, but things like that. Right. And she's like, okay, that's dumb.
Well, I'm going to, because it hit me. I was like, oh, yuck. Whenever I heard that. And so I've asked some other, women and young girls. I'm like, okay, what do you think of this statement? It doesn't play well. So, because for a couple of things, I think you're married and you have 4 children. Your life situation isn't the same as Bobai, so you're not on the market. So who cares?
Very correct. Yep.
And then the other thing is, I think it demeans you. Anytime you're talking about somebody's appearance, it's demeaning. It's awesome that God made you good looking. That's great. But the other thing is, it demeans women voters because women are notoriously they don't go for the looks. They go for honesty, security. If you're wanting to say what appeals to a woman, that's what appeals to a woman. And so it's just a demeaning thing. And I've kind of heard some surrogates of yours kind of say that, and I'm like, let's not.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you bringing that up because I do think you're right in that, and why we've been as a campaign so focused on how do we make sure that folks understand where we're headed, values, what the vision is, and then why you can be comfortable with me experientially
Right.
to make sure that the experience is there to do the job.
Right.
But I appreciate
Right.
hearing that, because it's
And
always good wisdom.
I mean, I know that you're
Yeah.
not out there saying, "Hey, tell everybody how good looking I am." I
That is one
know
of the
you're
more
not saying that.
uncomfortable parts,
So I just wanted to get that out there too. We're a little bit farther south, and than what Senator Banks is from. So I hear from a lot of people that you're Jim Banks' pick, and you're just kind of an extension of him, so that he has another arm of government. And I don't know what his favorability is in this state, but not everybody's 100%, Jim Banks. So how do you handle that? Because, he's your boss, and he's probably a friend, and he's, of course, been friendly to you, but, how do you handle that whenever not everybody is, smitten, I guess?
So I can definitely unpack that.
Okay.
One preface that I'll make is that I am on a leave of absence now, so not directly employed there.
Right.
But I think it is important, a few things. One, that I am very thankful for the support of Senator Banks, and for good conservative leadership that's saying, hey, we trust Max. We think he'll do this really well. And that's true of a lot of our statewide folks, really all of our statewide folks, saying we want to support Max and make sure that we help get him across the finish line. So one, thankful for that. Two, I will say I think that he's done an outstanding job in the U.S. Senate. Now, certainly I'm biased there from the perspective of having worked for him, but also as somebody who has been in and around Republican policy and politics for 20 years now, pressing on these issues, to see folks that really back up what they're saying is good. But the other part of it is, I've known the senator for 10 years now, for a little over a decade, and have appreciated that work. But I've been doing this for a long time, and I've done this.
So can we talk about that, your experience in this field? Because where we left off was detasseling.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and I'll catch that up.
Okay.
But I've been doing this for a long time, and have worked with a lot of folks at all levels of government. And so I think it's important to know, it's not that Senator Banks picked me out of nowhere to say, hey, this is going to be the guy that does what I tell him to do. Not the case at all. He doesn't think that. I don't think that.
Okay.
He said, I trust Max. I've seen what he's done for a decade. We need to run well in this race, to run this office well, to run for good policy. A little bit more on background. I worked for all the way through college. I went to IUPUI. I started at Ivy Tech, then went to IUPUI, paid for it all myself, and then I worked for a small business for a couple of years afterward that wasn't political, but in Indianapolis. But the whole time I was doing that, I was also working with, interning for, volunteering for lots of candidates and folks around the Republican Party to help get good folks across the finish line. And part of that was when the Obama administration won in that 2006, 7, 8 time frame, and they were making this press that it was the whole country is going towards hope and change, and they want to be pressing that direction to the left. And I'm sitting here thinking, am I the last person that doesn't want that? Like I don't want where a lot of they want to press on this. And in the then 8, 9, 10, 11 time frame, there was a lot of pushback on the administration at the time. And I was a big part of helping, I shouldn't say that, I was a part of helping a big movement. And when the House flipped and Republicans took over the House and they sent I believe it was a record number of new members, I was working for a small business, and I told my boss, how I'm inclined here. That's where conservative folks are going to serve and to do something big on this movement. And so I took the opportunity. I didn't know anybody in DC, but handed out my resume, got an opportunity to work out there to continue pressing the conservative movement. So went and ended up working for the Chief Elections Committee in the U.S. House. It's the Committee on House Administration.
And this was what year, like 2008-ish?
2011.
2011, okay.
That's right. And so did that, worked with them directly. It's, you had a number of different positions, but you survey the country's races because constitutionally the House oversees their own elections. Same thing with the Senate from another committee. And then you see, is there any contested elections, close elections, any places where there might be recounts. You recruit, train, and send out teams to go look at those races. But then I also worked for leadership in the U.S. House, where my job was working with all of our Republican members and saying, what do they need legislatively? What do their districts need legislatively? What are the priorities of the country? And how do you take all of that and put it in the puzzle to get it across the finish line legislatively?
Do you think that the federal government should have more control over elections then? Or do you think the states should still kind of maintain their own elections?
So I do not think the federal government should have more control over elections. And I'm going to give you one anecdotal story just because it's part of that. So when you have, when you have Republicans put up policy on elections, it's something like the Save America Act. It's how do we secure our elections? How do we make sure that we are bringing integrity to the elections? If you look at what the Democrats have done on their side, the first bill that they put up when they regained control of the House was an elections bill. And they named it the We the People Act, or For the People Act, rather. But it was a federalization of elections. It was doing what you mentioned, taking away authority from states, consolidating that in Washington, and saying that they would control the elections from there, which I'm adamantly opposed to.
Right.
And when you look at what happens when some of that comes to fruition, you see like elections in Washington, D.C. right now, at the local level, that their law says if you reside in the city for 30 days or longer, you can vote in local elections. So you can pick the mayor of the city. So that doesn't say you need to be here legally. It doesn't say that you must be a citizen. It doesn't say any other stipulations for the residency time that you just have to be there that long and then you can vote. Which that means even if you are an employee of an embassy in the city of Washington, D.C., even if it's an embassy for an adversarial country, if you reside longer than 30 days, you get to vote in their local elections and pick the mayor of our capital city.
Are you concerned about our voter turnout at all?
Yeah, so we do have a low voter turnout here in Indiana, I think particularly in primary elections. So part of it is education from hey, here's why it's important, and being very clear about that. Part of it is making sure that we have people registered to vote, encouraging voter registration broadly. But I do think we need to do really a lot to have folks understand the importance of not only voting in a general election, but also picking the best candidates in the primary elections. One idea that we've been working on that I think is really important, would be a cool opportunity. And this is a gentleman that I've been talking to in Dearborn County. We've been having these discussions on what it would look like exactly, but working with community foundations across counties to say, if you are going to get a scholarship, you need to put up a certain amount of, they already do, you put up a certain amount of hours of community service. That's a lot of times one of the requirements. And so could you have one of those community service opportunities be registering students to vote, or working on civics education, or working at the polls, or any of those things, so that it gives them an opportunity to get involved, and then also bring in their other peers and get them more involved, all to what is already a good end of getting a scholarship from a community foundation.
So Representative Yoakum has for years, because he's been county chair in Vermilion County for years, he has a really good program for high school students. So you should talk to him about his plan at some point in time too. So I've been researching, because doing genealogy, I read a lot of old newspapers pre-primaries. And so they did, just like you were elected, every candidate for the general would get elected on their party at a convention. So they had town conventions, county conventions, district, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, for a few years, it's kind of been in the back of my mind. I need to research to see when and how and why did we go to a primary system in Indiana. And so the last couple of years, I've done some research. It was 1915. It was a Democrat idea. It was not a Republican idea, actually, in the Republican platform and in the many platforms subsequent to that, except for the Democrat Socialists. They were against a primary system because they didn't feel like that taxpayers should have to pay for party decisions. So, I mean, that was the argument then. We're still talking about that 111 years later. But prior to 1915, in Indiana, depending on the year, there were anywhere from 5 to 8 different party platforms that people could run on. And so there were 2 essential primary parties. But with that primary platform, our primary law is what we have today, where you have to have 10% of the vote for Secretary of State in order to be to be recognized as a legitimate party. And I think what that has done, has disenfranchised a lot of voters because they don't identify as either party, or they just go ahead and join one of them, which waters down the parties. I think we should lower that threshold to make everybody pure, because I know that you've talked about a closed primary. I know that the Republican state platform now has a closed primary platform in it. I would be okay with that if we would lower that 10% threshold to 4. So you could actually you would have a higher voter turnout because people would have a party that they identified with, and you would keep your parties pure, and so that's my 2 cents on that. So that was me preaching on that.
No, that's okay. I think part of it is that when you're talking about closed primaries or voter affiliation, so you affiliate with your own party, I think it's important to note, and you talked about this a little bit, that it's not a partisan issue. So there are states across the country, in fact, the majority of states are either closed or semi-closed primaries, or you could say voter affiliated. And so I don't think that, one, setting that aside, it's not a partisan issue. 2, I think you could also drive up voter turnout when you look at states like Florida that are closed primaries with high voter turnout. I don't think that particular issue is the deciding factor necessarily around do we have voter turnout. And I think sometimes there can be a certain amount of apathy too around voting when you think maybe it's not going to make a difference one way or the other. I think that's probably the biggest issue around getting people out to vote. So understanding why it makes a difference, and then also believing that if you voted in your party's primary, that that's a real say in the outcome of that primary, that you'll be able to pick the best candidate for your party if you're affiliated there. So I think there's a lot of conversation to happen in there, but I also think that's why it's so important to work. This is something that has to go through the State House, to work directly and build a coalition with those State House partners to find out what is the best answer here out of the information that we have, so that as we move that direction, you can take the next best step. And there's a lot of people that have spent a lot of time on this that I'm very thankful for, that we want to work with and make sure you go through the whole process to get to the other side in a way that it pushes up our voter turnout. It also helps candidates be selected that best represent the party that they're seeking to represent.
Right. In Clay County, because I was looking at the numbers for Clay County, since that's where we're at and where I'm from, but in 1900, the population of Clay County was 35,000. And this was before women had the right to vote. You had to be 21 to vote as a man. And out of those 35,000, 7,600 were registered voters. And would you like to take a guess of how many people voted in the general election with those numbers pre-primary?
Out of 7,600?
Out of 7,600.
I would say it's probably higher than the percentages are now, so maybe we'll put them at 5,000.
7,300.
Wow.
That was not just 1908. I mean, it was pretty consistent. 1908, 1910, 12, 14, all right before the primary law went into effect. I think we disenfranchised voters with that primary law, and I think that we need to soften that a little bit. And that was actually in the Republican platform post 1915 primary law. They weren't talking about getting rid of it. They wanted to lessen, the severity of it. And so I think we should look at that a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's fair. How do we encourage folks to say this actually is meaningful to my life, It doesn't have to become your life,
right?
But it is meaningful, and I need to be invested in this in a way that shows up, including at the polling place.
I think one thing, and this is why we're doing these videos, is because I feel like our society makes people run for political office almost characters. You know, they don't get to see the human side, and we have forgotten the humanness that we all share. And so I'm hoping that more dialogue like this, and realizing that there's a quote that has become a favorite of mine: we're all just walking each other home. You know, and realizing that we're kind of in this together. I mean, if you and Bobai and Greg Ballard were on a deserted island, I think you guys would figure out a way to work together and not against each other, you know? And so I think once we get down to the base thing, and I realize that there's things that, you know, with worldviews you cannot compromise on, but those are, for the most part, those are kind of few and far between, you know?
Yeah, and that's a good thing. But I would say, too, that's why we've been really focused on what is the policy differentiator. So where do you want to see the state go?
Right.
Let's go, let's ask everybody.
Right.
Let's say, what do you most align with? Who shares your worldview and values? And then select that person.
I asked this question of Bobai. I'm going to ask this of you, and we're going to be doing Greg Ballard next week, so I'm going to ask this question of him too. So, Cowboy Bob, you're too young for Cowboy Bob, but he was a staple in Indiana. He had a kids show on in the afternoon, and he would always say, remember, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. But this is politics, so we know what the reality is. But let's just channel our inner Cowboy Bob for a second and tell me something that you admire about Bobai.
So I do appreciate his military service. You know, both of my grandfathers served in the military. I have two brothers-in-law that serve in the military. It's a huge deal. I appreciate that. And I'm thankful that he would say, I want to sign up to potentially put my life on the line to go serve for our freedom. So I very much appreciate that.
Greg Ballard, what's something you admire about Greg Ballard?
So I was in 2008, either 2007 or 2008, I'm getting old now, was with the Marion County Republican Central Committee.
Okay.
And he was, it would have been 8, I think. He was the mayor in Indianapolis.
Yep.
I appreciated some of the work that he was doing to say, hey, how do we make Indianapolis better? And so I think, especially in that first term, I appreciated a lot of what he was doing in the downtown. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I say, good on you for that particular work.
Yeah. Lori Schillings.
So I would say I don't know her that well.
Yeah. Have you met her?
I have not.
Okay.
I would say the biggest thing is I appreciate she's getting out to do this. You know, of what I understand, she wants to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
That's good. And I think, you know, I think we all do.
Yeah.
But I don't know her well enough to say only pick out this particular thing about her, but I do appreciate that she wants to put herself out there and try and make the state of Indiana better.
Okay. Now, I have not asked this question of Ballard and Lori Schillings yet. I have not reached out to Lori Schillings, but I'm going to. But I will tell you what Bobai said that he appreciated about you was your Christian faith and the fact that it seemed like you were a really good family man and really loved your family. So
I appreciate that. That's kind.
Okay, so rapid fire questions. Okay. What do you listen to, podcast music or audiobooks?
Right now, I don't listen to nearly as much as I should, but I will tell you, historically, I don't listen to quite as much music. It's almost always podcasts or books.
Yeah.
Last year, 2025, I made a conscious effort to listen through a lot more books.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of my work over the last years has been traveling on the road every day, talking to Hoosiers, and there's a lot of time to absorb information. So listened to a lot last year. There's a book called Life in the Negative World by Aaron Renn. He's
that sounds good. I'm going to write that one
an author from Carmel, actually, but he's a nationally known great guy. It's talking about living as a Christian kind of in our contemporary scenario. It's a great book. But what I would say I listen to often is it's The Briefing by Al Mohler.
Okay.
And so he just takes kind of what's happening in the world and looks at it through a Christian perspective. and kind of what you should take out of that as you're just living your life. And it's a wonderful podcast.
Okay, awesome. So, what book has impacted your life the most?
Do I get to say the Bible?
No, you don't, because
Okay.
that should be a give me,
Yeah.
just like your parents with most influential.
That's a good question. I don't know that I could isolate it down to one book. What I would say is a series that I've done in the past. Not a series. I'm going to back it up just a little bit.
Okay.
There was a group of guys that we met every other Tuesday, and we called it, and this is a little bit of a silly name, I get that, but the Dead Theologians Society. So we would read books from theologians that were no longer living.
Right, okay.
And there were a lot of really, really impactful theological books that we worked through that are hard to work through on your own.
Yeah.
But we would read them. There's about 10 of us.
Okay.
You'd read it and then digest it and then prepare where if you showed up on that Tuesday morning at 6 a.m, that you would be the one that was teaching it to the others.
Oh,
you
nice.
draw a name out of a hat and then you figured out, am I teaching or not?
Ooh, I
And
like
so
that
then
accountability.
everybody had to be prepared to
Yeah,
say
I like
as
that.
if they were leading it. And so it was a really awesome opportunity to work through probably 20 books or so from folks that, we stand on their shoulders now.
Yeah.
And work through what did they say? What was right, what was wrong,
Right.
and then how do we learn going forward from that? So it's not a book, but maybe a series of books, an idea that we pressed forward. That
So
impactful.
what theologian would you say impacted you the most that you felt like stood up?
So Spurgeon is a big one.
Okay.
Spurgeon's a big one. Another big one that he has recently passed away is R.C. Sproul. He's another one. I think both of those gentlemen. Very strong. C.S. Lewis did a lot of writing that I appreciate, and we spent a lot of time reading his books too. And really, there's pieces from all of those, gentlemen that you can say, oh, man, that was really, really powerful. And then ways that you can see how they did that, even in their historical setting. That's interesting.
So what do you think about the push now, or not the push, where more people are going with the more either Orthodox or Catholicism instead of evangelicalism, Protestantism?
So what I've seen is, especially with young folks, a desire to, and it's not exclusively young folks, but a desire to find something real, find something that they can believe in. And a lot of it is coming through, going back to a Christian church, or even being more conservative. We've seen with a lot of our young folks. And I think what you see, whether it's someone going to church for the first time or someone maybe coming back to the faith, is that a lot of times you're intrigued by sort of the high tradition, right? The reverence that you see in a lot of other Orthodox or Catholic churches. You go in and you know that you're in church.
Right.
And so I think that appeals to folks pretty directly when you're in that position of either going for the first time or coming back to it. And I think, that's wonderful. I also think that there's a lot of folks that say, I can appreciate that, but what I really want is to spend more time just diving into particular theology or reading directly into the Bible and what I want to pull out of that. And so I think a lot of folks approach it in different ways, but my kind of outside looking in perspective from someone coming back to the church is probably reverence or the high order there.
Yeah. Because we have gone to a lot of different denominational churches, and I have to say that the holiness of a Catholic church is unlike any that I have seen in any other denominational church. And so I don't know, maybe that's the appeal, where you can feel the holiness, but then sometimes people say, well, it's not about feelings, but I don't know, maybe holiness has a special place in a world that seems so yucky. I don't know.
Reverence is key, kind of no matter what church denomination you're in. And what we've found is we go to just a non-denominational Bible church. Like we want to say, how do we dive into the Word? And that is the premier authority. But I do think you have to have a high view of Scripture. And that includes reverence for Scripture and for the church body as well.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so you've already answered what's the basis of your worldview. What's your life's motto?
So I would say the number one thing, when I moved out to D.C., called my dad while I was on the way, and I said, the number one thing that I want to do here is work hard and trust God. I think that has been my goal for my life. And we all have an element of it that we have to put in there, but trusting God that we are acting inside of His will and that what He wants to happen here is what's going to happen. And so you don't hold something so tight that you strangle it, but also not so loosely that you're not working hard, and just say, let's go and show me where you want me to be.
Yep, good deal. Okay. What attributes do you want to be remembered whenever you're in the coffin and everybody's, crying over you?
Yeah, so I want them to say that, he was a strong Christian. I want them to look at my wife and kids and say he was a good husband and a good father, and that he operated his life with high integrity. I think if those things were said, those are high things to be said. If those things were said, I will be very pleased that my life was lived the way that God would want me to have lived it.
Yeah. Do you feel like you live more now with the idea of having a good name for your kids to fall back on? That you're almost, that you're more concerned about their legacy as opposed to your own good name?
So I think I'm maybe a little less concerned about legacy as that statement is made, and more of just how do I live my life well. I know those are simply almost saying the same thing, but I do want my kids to, one, grow up in a house where they can say, one, it was I enjoyed growing up in this household. Two, that I respected what my parents, told me, and that number one priority is that they then see your witness and say, I want to be a Christian myself. Right. And not that you don't have your parents' Christianity, that you have to grab that yourself and own that. And that I think the biggest thing for me is whether my name is good, bad, indifferent, is that they see that he was a Christian and that he led in that way and that they want that for themselves. Right.
Good deal. Okay, so what is it we're cooking today?
Okay, so we're going to cook it's a Cajun salmon over a fettuccine Alfredo, and part of that is because the kids love it. Okay. And I enjoy it. Okay. And when you're making food that all four kids like, that's a winner. And I will say, most of the cooking in our house, my wife does. I'm very thankful for that. She's also a better cook than I am. But I do enjoy cooking. Yeah. And I think she would say the same thing, where we're kind of going to make what we're going to make, and the kids know you need to eat what we're eating. But we are thankful when those meals are also something everybody enjoys.
Yeah, exactly. So just one last question before we go to the kitchen. What was your birthday meal like? What's your favorite meal that you like on your birthday?
So while I enjoy food, it's not something that I put as much stock into, but I would say
I can tell you're too skinny for that.
I do enjoy a good steak. Okay. I like a medium rare steak and some type of potato and vegetable on the side. It's excellent. I also enjoy lasagna, and it can be regular lasagna or even like a veggie lasagna. A zucchini lasagna, so that's great too. But probably the one individual item that I like the most is a very good cheesecake. Okay. Like a strong cheesecake is going to catch me most of the time. Okay, awesome. Okay, well, join us in the kitchen, folks. So I am in your hands, Max. We're doing your concoction. This is rare for me. We even joked off camera, maybe I should sit at the bar and watch him, and he could do the cooking. So you direct me. You tell me what it is that we're doing. Awesome. So we're going to make a fettuccine Alfredo. So we've got the water boiling or coming to a boil, the pasta ready or prepared to go in, and then we'll make the sauce here from scratch, and then we're going to sear the salmon. So it'll be salmon on top with a Cajun seasoning on it and pan seared. So perfect. I think what we'll probably do is give you all the stuff for the Alfredo sauce. Oh yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. And there's your salt and pepper there too. Okay. Excellent. Sorry, I'm interrupting you. No, so we'll probably prep the salmon. Okay. Get it prepared to go in. Okay. So then as the noodles get ready and we start the sauce, it should all be timed out appropriately. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the skillet on, so whenever it goes in, it's got a little you hear that little sear going on. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
All right, so we've got some great pieces of
Now,
salmon here.
So do you do a whole piece of salmon, or do you cut it to your liking then?
So generally speaking, I will get a whole piece of salmon.
Yeah.
And then cut it to size. And
We cheat. We buy this from Piazza, which is based out of Indianapolis. So, you know, we promote those Indiana
That's
companies.
good. That's right. We want Indiana companies.
Right.
That's good. And then we'll cut it down and then usually season. And I do like, so there's a lot of great ways to make salmon. But a pan seared is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of crisp on it
Yeah.
and it tastes delicious.
Yep. Okay, so I'm going to turn that down a little bit because I'm feeling that already. So Max said that he does the salmon instead of doing a temp. He does it by the feels, which is my language. I like cooking by the feels. So
that's right.
So this is
so
good.
With the salmon, we'll grab that seasoning over here. And this is the Cajun type seasoning.
Yeah. So we didn't have Cajun seasoning, but we happen to have a Louisiana seasoning here that we use for the chicken piquois. So that's what Max is putting on the salmon for this recipe. So.
That's right. Set that here.
Looks good.
And then we will add a little bit of olive oil there, I think.
Okay. You tell me when to whoa.
Okay.
Now, do you like cast iron, or do you have another preference?
I do like cast iron. I think that's probably my favorite to cook in. You got to have it well seasoned and everything in order to make it
There we go.
Work properly.
Right.
All right. So for the sauce, we're going to cut up the garlic right now just so it's prepared to go.
Now see, Max is going full tilt with the garlic because around here we buy the already minced garlic, and Max is going with whole garlic cloves. So I get to watch him do his thing.
My wife probably enjoys garlic more than I do.
Okay, good.
So it's good, but this is one where I'm thankful for the gloves.
Yeah.
Smell like garlic for a long time.
Oh yeah. Your next event, you'd be smelling like garlic if you didn't have the gloves on.
That's right.
And about how often do you cook at home, would you say? I mean, your life is not normal at the moment.
That is correct.
But let's say during normal seasons, how often do you get to cook?
In a normal time, I'd say I probably cook a little bit more on the weekends.
Okay.
And sometimes that's just manning the grill. Sometimes that's actually cooking in the kitchen. But I probably end up cooking. We'll have my wife fact check me on this, but probably to be safe, I'd say once a week. But sometimes it's more.
Okay.
I think one thing that we've both gotten pretty good at is knowing when to lean in.
Do you want butter in this, or should I turn this pot down?
We can go ahead and put the butter in it.
Too hot. Okay.
I can set those straight in. And this is part of the problem with talking while you're cooking.
That
you end up.
Oh, I forget what I'm saying more than anything. But I think part of that's just being a 50-plus-year-old woman.
Yeah,
all of my friends seem to have the same thing. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take off that glove, put on another one. I'm going to season this salmon on the other side.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll put the garlic in.
Looking good. Smelling good.
All right. And I'm also going to add the heavy cream here.
Alrighty.
I'm going to put a cup and a half of that in.
Nice. Looking good. Alfredo sauce made from scratch tastes so much better. Has so much more depth of flavor. Doesn't have that artificial taste to it like you get from the cans or the jars that you get at the store.
It is very good.
I'm a big fan.
And when you can find something like we talked about that the kids are going to eat,
right.
We're in a good spot.
So would you throw, I know you would do a salad, because we talked about doing a salad, but I didn't buy all the right ingredients, so no salad today. That'll have to be another trip back to the kitchen. But what would be a side that you would typically serve with this meal?
I think another side would be asparagus. We really enjoy roasted asparagus with it. Sometimes it's just another green, like maybe broccoli or some other type of a green bean or something like that.
Now,
but
are you guys roasters, or are you guys more, how do you guys tend to cook your veggies, your green veggies, like asparagus and Brussels sprouts and things like that?
Generally speaking, we are roasters. I think that's usually the best way to do it for us. And then we're going to add we had the salt and pepper that we put in there.
Yep.
And we're also going to do a little bit of the Italian seasoning here.
Okay, perfect.
And once this gets up to temperature, then we'll add the Parmesan cheese and get it to a nice...
So for the folks at home, are you looking for a simmer on that, or?
Just a little bit.
Okay.
Because you don't want it to over cook here, but you do want it to get hot enough where when the cheese goes in that it's going to be melted. Right. And blend in nicely to it. Yeah.
This one looks good. I'm going to go ahead and just shut
that's
this
perfect.
off. Okay, guys, that's what we're looking for. Looks delicious. I love salmon.
I do too.
So whenever I was a kid, we had salmon patties, from the jar, the can. Did you grow up with that?
We
with
did.
8 kids?
Yep.
It's not, if people think they don't like salmon and that's all they had, they've never really had salmon.
That's right.
It's totally different to have fresh salmon. So I like how you're adding in the Parmesan cheese a little at a time.
Yeah, sometimes you just want to make sure that it actually gets integrated into the sauce.
Right, and doesn't come out lumpy and clumpy and all that good stuff.
That's right. All right, so the sauce is prepared.
Okay.
The salmon is prepared. We're waiting on the noodles here
We are, I'd say 2 minutes out from the noodles. Our noodles finally got up to snuff.
Oh, perfect. All
They're
right.
finally al dente, so
there we go.
We're gonna now. Would you typically use fettuccine for this? Because I have spaghetti noodles, or would you use a fancy pasta?
Typically fettuccine,
Okay.
a little bit wider, and gives you an excuse to use them.
Yeah, I'm gonna
This looks great.
We might leave those in there because I'm gonna be making a lot of noise.
No problem.
Okay.
Perfect. All right.
There we go.
In this case, we're going to do it a little more family style here and dress.
Perfect. Family style's best. Looks delicious, you guys. Looks very good.
All right. And then we'll toss this.
Love it.
And where did you say this pottery was from?
Clay City Pottery.
Wonderful.
And that is Clay County's oldest business.
That is awesome.
Dates back into the 1800s. And best pie pans ever. They're a little bit wider around and they're deeper, so you get more filling, and they just bake a perfect crust. So highly
awesome.
Recommend if you ever get to stop by, get your wife a gift and get her a
That's a
nice
good point.
Clay City Pottery.
That's a good
And
point.
everybody else on your Christmas
Yes,
list.
that's right. That's right.
Just do it. Just go for it.
All right, so we're going to add it to the plate,
Okay.
and then we'll set a piece of salmon right on top of that.
Yay. Now, see, if I was really good, we'd have some parsley or something to put on top of it, but I'm not that good, Max. We're going to go ahead and try this, Max. So
Okay,
there's
wonderful.
your fork.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I'm so excited about this. I think this is the first pasta dish. No. Greg Good made turkey tetrazzini, or chicken tetrazzini, and it was delicious.
And look at that. You did excellent work.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, you were the one directing, so you were the director.
Wonderful.
I was just I was your sous chef today.
Yeah, it was outstanding. Thank you.
Okay. I feel like I'm going to be wearing this,
I
but
know.
I'm going to
Same
go
here.
for it.
Same here.
Good job.
I second that. That was good. Nice work.
Good job. Thank you so
Cooked
much
well.
for coming
Absolutely.
and
Thank you.
cooking with me.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Absolutely.